Good morning. Welcome to a word of encouragement, and guess where we are? Look at this beautiful lobby in the new church building. We are so excited to be here. Isn't it gorgeous? This is absolutely gorgeous. This is the natural lighting. And so we have Michelle here as always, and then we have Christine Little. I know most of you know her, but in case you don't, she is our women's ministry assistant. And we thought how perfect that we have the core of women's ministry.
She's the one who gets it all done, so we have huge thanks to go to her. She's the details person.
Absolutely. We are very thankful for you. You've really been a blessing to us. So we thought we'd have her this morning joining us. And so we wanted to talk about God's promises and how he fulfills his promises. And so Michelle was saying, we're continuing with the theme of freedom floating, how we are, as we are floating through the currents of life, we are waiting on God's promises. And sometimes we get to see them fulfilled, like this beautiful building, and sometimes we have to wait longer, but we are putting our trust in him through the whole journey. So
yeah, I think it was really cool. I was on the phone yesterday with Diane Boucher, and she was talking about this building, and she's like, back in 1993, we would have prayer meetings for this building, right? And I'm thinking, like, 1993, I was in high school, right? I didn't have any concept that one day I'd live in, Burke, Virginia. And so I just thought, how faithful is God, right? And how we have to trust his timing, too. Because sometimes we're praying and we're not seeing, like, God, are you forgetting about me? Are you leaving me here? And yet God is faithful. He keeps his promises. And I love this in Psalm 145. It says, the Lord always keeps his promises. He is gracious in all he does. The Lord helps the fallen and lifts those bent beneath their loads. The eyes of all look to you in hope. You give them their food as they need it, right? Not too soon, but as they need it.
Mine says in due time.
Interesting. Yeah. When you open your hand, you satisfy the hunger and thirst of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in everything he does. He is filled with kindness. The Lord is close to all who call on him. Yes, to all who call on him in truth. He grants the desires of those who fear him. He hears their cries for help and rescues them. And I just thought about that, like he does. He hears our cries, and so even when we can't see him, he's right there. He's with us. He's beside us. He's listening.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just so rich, and I think we, last night she mentioned we're going to talk about God's promises, and so I'm like, I'm going to go online and look up some verses on promises. There are hundreds and hundreds. There's so many. I started writing up a document, copying and pasting, and then it disappeared on me. But it was such a good reminder. I mean, his word is so rich, and there of so many promises that he gives us. And we think, of course, of the promised land and the time of when they were in the wilderness and God had made promises and they were still wandering. They were wandering. And you were talking about that too in Numbers, which apparently Numbers is her favorite book of the Bible.
It is. It's amazing what they learned out in the wilderness and what God had to just really sift through their hearts before they were ready to receive his promise. And I think, wow, how much greater is what he gives us than we could ever picture. I mean, I think the people that prayed for this building, did they ever realize the splendor God had planned for us? Because I look at this, I'm like, it's so bright light and it's filled with him. And how we got to sign the pillars and put our verses. I remember putting how he is a shelter and strength for me, and how I can come in here and just get refuge. And the rest of the world is just like, okay, I can let go of the stress. I can just get surrounded by his blessing.
You know what's so cool about that? Diane was saying how they prayed that God's grace would be realized here. And like you years later come in and say, that's what you were writing, right? And just how he answered that prayer.
Last Sunday I attended church for the first time since this all happened, and we got to meet in the sanctuary, and I guess I didn't come with any expectations, but man, I was just blown away how wonderful it was to be together as a body and just be humbled at this and how we get to be a part of it. And we've been at BCC for 10 years, but not since 1993, but and just to get to be together and just worship the Lord together. This is a place of refuge, and God is here, and he is blessing this church. And so it is just, I'm grateful that we get to walk in the promises that people have prayed before and been faithful. So yeah, and I want to encourage, for those who haven't been yet, please come. There's plenty of space you can wear your mask and be, socially distanced, but yeah, just come in and be grateful for what he has done and how he is using this local body here to bless our community. So.
When you were talking about that desert land, I know a lot of you have been paddleboarding with Faith lately, which is so awesome. I'm glad everybody's having that fun fellowship time. But one morning when I was out on the water, there's this beautiful old house across the river from us, and I thought, I'm going to paddle over there to see it, right? And I was so close, and all of a sudden the waves came up, right? And it was like that thing when the waves get in your way and you're so close to your destination, right? And like, do you keep moving forward, right? And, it became this whole spiritual analogy. But then what was funny is to get home, I had to paddle way, way out of my way because the way the waves were, to be able to go back. And like on that way out there, because, I had my life jacket on, but I was literally clinging to God, like praying, like you couldn't believe, right? Like, God, please get me home safe. But I was having this conversation with God, right? And I was clinging to him in the midst of him taking me on this long path to be able to get back home, right? And I thought, that is just how our lives are. Like, we always think, oh, I want this, and I'm gonna just go right there. And yet God's not about us receiving any of this if we don't know him and experience him on this journey of life, right? And he's all about making our relationship with him deeper and growing us. And so we're gonna have opportunities this fall where you can grow in your faith. And whether you're up for a study or whether you just need to just come be with women and open your Bible, there's going to be options that we're going to put out, and the email will come out next Monday for that with all the classes. So it's time to dive in.
It's so time. Yeah, and that reminds me of something. So last night I mentioned I was looking up verses about God's promises, like Google what are some Bible verses about dreams and goals, and I actually kind of went a different way. I thought, okay, we have all these great verses about dreams, but it actually was more of, it's about, sometimes we want certain things. We want, and God does meet our needs, but we're praying for these tangible things. God bless this, bless that. But really, like you said, he wants a relationship with us, and I think those are the best promises. And how he promises to be with us. He promises to be our peace. He promises salvation. All these things that he wants our hearts, and those are the best promises. And so that's just a reminder that and I know some of you, maybe God has put a vision on your heart or a specific dream that he has placed, and it hasn't come to fruition yet. So I don't want to encourage you in that, but remember that the most beautiful promises is that he's going to take our hearts of stone, make them hearts of flesh. There's so many rich promises that but really he wants us. He wants our heart more than all, and then he promises to speak to us. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So I do have some promises, and maybe that God has laid on your heart or a vision.
I think it's so funny because I was talking to someone the other day, and I realized that where I'm at now was not where my parents intended. They didn't know. I went in the Army of all places, so they didn't see women's ministry assistant down the road. And I think of how many prayers I have for the kids, and I think, wow, what's God going to do with them? Because even though I see biology major or into marketing, what's God going to hold them into? So I have great hope now, thinking, oh, I'm in a very good place now, and where's he going to hold them one day? And how different it will be than anything I can dream of.
I love that. Yeah. Well, Sana brought up one time too how, there's the scripture where people have prayed for future generations and how those future generations were blessed because of it. And so somebody once told me you should pray for your children's spouse, you should pray for these things. And I love that I've learned that now why not? Why shouldn't we be praying for their futures, really, truly? Because we are raising these, women and men of God, and just,
Yeah, we were talking about the song, The Blessing, which I know we mentioned, I think last week, and it's probably been brought up a couple different times. Yeah, absolutely. But there's the number 6:20 was that the Lord bless you and keep, Lord make his face shine upon you, Lord be gracious unto you and give you peace. And also the blessing, I just looked up in Deuteronomy, there's several blessings listed. So just go through Deuteronomy, and I've underlined quite a few, and how he will, this is his, bless your, he'll bless you, multiply you, bless the fruit of your womb, your kids. He's going to bless that. And he will, and let's see, Deuteronomy 5, and he will, 5:10, and he will show loving kindness to the 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. So I think we need to get the bigger picture. I mean, we don't know. We're getting to see the fruits of prayers from a generation ago. What is the fruit going to be a generation from now? And this is a reminder of what we can pray into. So for our kids, start praying into our future grandkids, our great-grandkids. Start praying into that. And God's going to show his loving kindness to the 1,000 generations. So pray into that. And being reminded too in Hebrews, that when we talk the Hebrews Hall of Fame, and talk about, a lot of them didn't get to see the reward of their faith on the earth. So just and how God credited that as righteousness to them, that they were faithful even when they didn't get to see the promise here on earth. And so just be reminded of that we get to be blessed and experience some of the promise that he has already fulfilled, but then also rejoice that there's so many more to come for our kids and grandkids and beyond. So
and some of you are walking through really tough seasons, like tragic seasons, right? And like even just focusing on God, like God gave his son so that the lives of many could be saved, right? And even again in Genesis, he tells us that, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. And sometimes in our darkest moments, we can't see how God is going to use that for his glory, right? But he's got a plan so much bigger than the one that we are seeing right in front of us, right? We're not on that street, like just here to there path. He's working on our hearts. He's working on all of those things, and he does love us. And so the fact that his promise that he'll be with us during those times is, that we just need to call on him.
Yeah, and one of my favorite stories is when Abraham is about to sacrifice Isaac, when God calls him to sacrifice Isaac. And so, you know the story, that God had promised Abraham that he would have descendants like the stars. And Sarah was barren for many years before he had Isaac. And so God answered his promise, right? He was faithful. And then what does God do? He says, go take Isaac up and sacrifice him. But God, you promised me descendants. How could this be? But Abraham didn't say that. That's what I would have said. But he didn't say that, and he went and he did it. He went to Mount Moriah. But here's the cool thing. I got to find it here. When he was about to go, this is now in Genesis 22. So he told his servants there, he said, that he was going to get the wood and go with Isaac. He told his servants, we will be back. We will be. He knew God was going to provide. He knew. And also that if God would resurrect him, or whatever, Isaac and Abraham were coming back. God was going to be faithful. And so it took the very moment. Can you imagine walking up Mount Moriah? God is asking me to sacrifice my own son. He takes it. He lifts up his arm. He is ready to do it. At the very last second, God provides the ram right there. And he said, he says, you have been faithful to me. So God says, do not stretch out your hand against the lamb. Do nothing to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you've not withheld your son, your only son, from me. So it was a great test in that time of waiting, or in that time of, God made a promise, and he does not go against his word. And it appeared that God was going to do something but God, you're not going to fulfill his promise. But Abraham knew that, and he did not waver. And it was a test. And God said, you have been faithful. You have not withheld your son from me. So maybe you're in a situation where you feel like you are right there about to, God, I need you to provide right now. And he will. The ram, this metaphor here, the ram is there, and God will provide. So he is ever faithful, even when it looks like he isn't. So, yeah.
He's constantly giving us opportunities to just trust him more. Trust
Yeah.
me, Trust me. He tells us a million times to trust in him. So, We are going to go to prayer, so please join us in prayer this morning on the Zoom link that we'll post below. And then, this afternoon, Moms of Hope is going to be here at 2 p.m. to share their ministry with you. And then on Thursday, there's kitchen conversations as well and sacred spaces. So I sent out an email last night, so you have all the details. And there's some very exciting upcoming events. Speaking of new things, the women's retreat, we are announcing the dates of that. It went out in the email last night. If for any reason you don't receive our emails, email women@burkecommunity.com, and we will make sure that your name is on there. So take care, ladies.
All right, see you next week.
Or Sunday here at church.